Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your panel on Consumer of the Future, Digitally Savvy and Environmentally Conscious, moderated by founding partner and CEO of Trian Fund Management, Nelson Peltz.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And Michael, if you're out there, congratulations on an amazing conference. You keep outdoing yourself year after year. But for those of you who don't know, Michael and I go back about 50 years. 50. And during that period of time, whether it's been breakfast, phone calls, appointments, this is the latest time slot he has ever given me at 10:45. So I can tell you either he's getting soft or he likes the panelists a lot better than me. Let's kick things off right away by talking about a few major trends that we all are seeing and how our panelists are responding to those trends. And then we'll go to questions and general discussion. Urbanization. 50% of the world's population resides in cities now. By 2050, that number is expected to climb to 70%. And with Asia growing the fastest, and that's for the 600 largest cities in the world. That's affecting shopping, economics, and habits, and changing lifestyles and the services needed to accommodate those lifestyles. E-commerce. We've got a lot of people up here who know about e-commerce, starting with Joe. That's growing at 18% annually, where traditional retail at only 1%. And again, it's the same story lately. The small fish are eating the big fish, so the small format stores are taking market share from the larger ones. We see the continued expansion of direct-to-consumer, enabling new sources of innovation for all companies, even some old line companies, even some old brands are learning. So the elephant is learning to dance in certain cases, and we invest in old line companies, and we're thrilled about that. 3.6 billion people are digitally connected. 3 billion people are on their cell phones, and they have dinner at my house every night. Consumer data is driving media and commerce. There are new formats in entertainment, and Christine is going to talk about that. Communications and connections, changing how companies and brands engage with consumers and inspiring all sorts of new innovation. Connected devices, voice, personal assistants, Internet of Things, sensors, algorithms, machine learning, and AI are changing every aspect of the consumer experience, from product, package, communications, retail execution, and very importantly, value. Water shortages, plastic waste, energy shortages, climate change. Consumers around the world of all ages, but especially the Gen Zs and especially the millennials, only want to do business with companies that can be environmentally friendly and can help the world that we live in today. As an investor in everything consumer, Trian, and many of you are all seeing these trends, and I know all of our panelists are as well. So to stay at the forefront, we need to stay incredibly nimble. And Joe, you're at the intersection of all of these trends, and I'd like to start my questions with you. When I was in Beijing last winter, I recently visited a HEMA store. Really amazing. And it was, in the back of the store, which you won't see, there were at least 50 kids on motorbikes ready to make deliveries. Talk to us about the genesis of your online to offline retail strategy. And when I heard you speak in Beijing, you said the company was founded on e-commerce, but since then you dropped the E. So talk to us about that.
Well, first, just a few data points. You mentioned 3.6 billion people that are digitally connected. About a quarter of them are in China. 800 plus million people use the internet in China. If you look at our online presence, 90% of our transactions are being done on a mobile phone instead of on a desktop computer.
Right.
So China is a very mobile community. The user base is everywhere. They're using the phone everywhere. What it means is that whenever they go, they're spending so much more time connected to the internet, so that the capture of the user data and insights is very, very abundant. So that's number one. The other thing is, if you look at our Alibaba platform, the retail platform, people shopping on our apps, 75% of the users are below 35 years old. 75%. Okay, so I start to feel very old working in the company. So when we move from online to offline, what we really wanted to do is to merge our sort of user experience or the customer experience from the consumer standpoint, from an inventory standpoint, and also from a logistics standpoint. You visited our Hema store, which is our self and operated grocery operation. We started Hema about 3 years ago as our kind of test tube experiment to run it. This is before Amazon bought Whole Foods.
Right.
Today, the Hema store, we have about 150 stores all over China, mainly in the first and second tier cities. The key thing is, in a traditional retail shop, when you walk into a store, you have no idea whether the customer has visited the shop a week ago or a month ago. And if they did, what did they purchase? You have no clue. But with our ability to combine our online data insight, it tells us a lot about the customer. So, if you notice when people are in the Hema stores, they're all whipping out their phones.
Right.
They're scanning the barcodes of the products to understand more, to learn more about the information about what they want to buy. At the checkout counter, they're using mobile payments. So there's plenty of use cases and opportunities to use the mobile phone in that scenario. And at the same time, they are giving us more insights about their preferences. So from a consumer standpoint, the online and the offline understanding of the customer is combined.
Right.
Also, if you're the retailer, what this combination allows you to do is to serve both online and offline through the same inventory system. So whatever you see on the shelf is also available for purchase online. So you could be in a Hema store in one day, and then the next day you are ordering from your home or from your office, and we'll deliver it from the store. And finally, on logistics, if you think about sort of the traditional logistics of Amazon hub and spoke structure, it doesn't work in the grocery context because the food needs to be fresh. You're buying fruits, vegetables. In China, live seafood is a very big category. But if you have inventory basically located in the stores, they are in densely populated areas. We have a good density of stores, basically try to locate a store within 3 kilometers of a community. Then you can deliver the product very fast in a very efficient way within 30 minutes. That's the promise that we deliver. So basically, if you want to kind of work with the offline world, you have to bring a lot of what you have, the assets in online, and really try to integrate the two to make it work.
Christine, you made an amazing splash with Avengers this weekend, and then just a short time ago, your announcement regarding Disney Plus, your new app. Disney now, with a combination of Fox, is definitely the king of content. So explain why you have decided to compete with Netflix, Amazon, and Apple. I understand the strategy long term, but with the combination of Fox and all the work you're doing, tell us how you plan to make those two things happen so quickly.
Sure. Thanks, Nelson. I think, first off, I wouldn't say that we are choosing to compete. We are choosing to serve our customers. Take a step back, we have been very busy at Disney the last year or so. We have announced, and this goes back a couple of years, that we were going to a direct-to-consumer strategy. And there was a lot of, I would say, questions about how are we going to do it and how would we compete with the likes of Netflix and Amazon. And at the same time, we were working on the acquisition of 21st Century Fox. And that was announced back in December of 17. We just closed this past March, and we've already begun our integration plans. But the reason why we decided to go direct to consumer was because we had been looking at the consumption of media. And the consumption of media is as high as it's ever been. It's just being consumed differently. And with the evolution of technology and the ability to view your content wherever, whenever you want it on demand, it has been a challenging environment for the traditional cable ecosystem, which a lot of the media companies traditionally put their content out to the public. So we decided that we have the content, we have the brands, everything from not only Disney, but also our Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm brands, that we had the kind of brands and the affinity with our consumer base that we believe that we could go direct to consumer. As Joe mentioned, he knows a lot about who he is selling and what they're buying. We don't, because for the most part, other than our parks business, which people physically go to the parks and they enjoy the park, or they'll go to our hotels, we don't have information on who goes to our movies, who watches our shows. That, by and large, is done through a third party. So having the access to that consumer information, the only way you can get it is going direct to consumer. We also had been thinking about how we were going to do this, and a few years ago, we bought a controlling stake in a company called BAMTech. It's been renamed Disney Streaming Services. It was bought from Major League Baseball. And that has the ability not only to do SVOD streaming, but also to do live streaming. So when we we announced the Disney Plus app April 11th, it was received extraordinarily well because we were able to demonstrate the platform, the app. We brought out the technology creators, and we also brought out the content creators. And that's probably one of the key things that differentiates Disney from other entertainment and media companies, is that we have these content creators who are associated with their brands. You mentioned the tremendous opening of Avengers Endgame this weekend. That's the work of Kevin Feige and his team. And they have had a phenomenal track record of success. And consumers want to see that content. They want to see it not once, but probably multiple times. The only place consumers can see our content once we launch Disney Plus is on Disney Plus. So we'll know who's watching, we'll be able to tailor the content, and we're really enthusiastic about it. In the meantime, we did acquire 21st Century Fox, and that did just close. And we are, they have also great content creators on the TV and the film side. And when you look at the combination of our existing content coupled with the content that's coming over from Fox, it's pretty phenomenal. So we are in the early stages of integration. We started literally the day after the acquisition closed, and we'll be working on that. And we're committed to achieving not only cost synergies but revenue synergies in a relatively short period of time.
Thanks. Tom, start telling us about Sysco. I've been on the board for quite some time and been very happy with my experiences there. But every time I mention Sysco, I've got to explain to people it's the one that starts with an S. So you've made amazing progress. You are the ultimate B2B company, and you're the industry leader. How do you reach and retain customers today when even B2B customers today hotels, restaurants, schools, and colleges are looking for a more D2C experience?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here with all of you. And yes, we oftentimes have to explain that we're the Sysco with the S, which is the global food service provider. You know, as I think about us working with customers, and so maybe a little different being on the panel today, we really work through our customers to help them get to the consumers. And when the consumer's changing as quickly as they are today, we've got to be nimble and flexible to help them do that. And so there have been a couple different things that we've done over the last couple of years to better position us to support them. First and foremost, we got involved with some restaurant technology companies ourselves. We've acquired into that space with a few startups, and it's been very helpful in both us helping our customers, but also us getting insight to some of that consumer information. So we've got a point of sale system called Cake that we work with very closely with certain customers to, again, help them reach their consumers. That system allows them to set up things like social media, help better manage their reservations. And also there's a program called Guest Manager, which allows them to help manage the guest flow in their restaurants. So we're looking at lots of different ways we can change the way we think and operate. We've got a group, kind of an innovation hub within the company called Sysco Labs, and they're very focused on, again, partnering with the customer on the journey that those customers have to ultimately touch the consumer. So we've kind of positioned ourselves in the middle to be that support network for our customers, since everything we really do starts and ends with our customers. We've also built out an analytics and innovation organization that enables us to more quickly respond to those changing needs that our customers have, like labor shortage, where they're dealing with not only the need to get in labor-saving products or labor-saving services, but also enabling them to manage the labor they have better, whether it's in the inventory management of product or in how they staff and support their front end. So just a few examples of things we're doing.
Thanks, Tom. Dirk, as you know, we've been at Trian all around Mondelēz, Kraft, Cadbury, Snapple, going way back. And it's wonderful to see how the company has evolved. And I loved everything the company did, except when they broke the company up, we loved it. The shareholders loved it. But the name, I wasn't crazy about the name. And I told Irene, it sounds like a disease. And it's sort of like you go to the doctor, he tells you got Mondelēz, take 2 aspirin and see me in the morning. So, but I've gotten past that because I love the SKU lineup. I love the geographical footprint of Mondelēz. And I think that you guys have a product line today that even the pickiest consumer will allow themselves to have a little reward, a little special something, whether it's an Oreo Thin, a Tate's cookie, or a piece of Toblerone dark chocolate. So those, I call them accepted indulgences. And unlike most of the other food companies today on the planet, what they're serving up, they're not accepted indulgences. Bologna just ain't gonna hack it anymore in the new world. So tell us about your e-commerce strategy. It's a vast space. It includes D2C e-tailers, bricks and mortar, and all moving online. How do you manage the different pieces and keep the imagination of your consumer?
Thanks, Nelson, and thanks for having me. Yes, I didn't know how to pronounce the name of the company when I joined either, so I think we were too clever for our own good.
Right.
What we did is we did a competition in the company, and a French gentleman came up with the name Delicious World, Monde Délicieux, and then they merged it into Mondelēz. Nobody really can make that connection between Delicious World and Mondelēz.
I forgive them because the stock has been doing well, sir.
So e-commerce for us is really 3 different segments. First of all, there's the pure play online retailers like Boxed or Alibaba, although not so pure play anymore with the recent shops. Then there is the retailers that have started to develop themselves online, like Walmart. And then there is direct to consumer. So we look at those 3 segments. Overall, e-commerce for us is growing about 40% a year. It's very different from region to region. In us, we're in snacking. which is an impulse type of category. You can understand that buying online is a little bit less than buying big bags of pet food or so. But in China, about 15% of our business is online. In Europe, the UK, and France, about 7 to 8%. And in the US, it's only 1.5% at the moment. Now, the US is growing 60% a year. China is also growing about 40–50% a year, and Europe is growing 20% a year. They're the biggest region, smallest growth. 75% of our business is with the multi-channel players, and 25% of our business is with the pure player. The thing about online buying in our category is that the consumer wants something special. If I just want an Oreo, I'm not really going to buy that online unless it's at a good price or it's in a bigger quantity. So it's about bigger quantities, and it's about special experiences. Millennials, they just want to have an experience on top of consuming the product. So we've been aiming at creating special experiences. Oreo at the moment is the preferred food brand amongst millennials, which we're quite proud of. And so the things we've done, for instance, with Alibaba, we've done an Oreo music box, which is a music box where you put an Oreo on it, it plays music, you take a bite of it, plays a different tune. In China also we did Oreo Rainbow, which is a pack with 8 different flavors of Oreo, wasabi, spicy chicken, mango. Not immediately flavors that in the US would be very popular, but in China it really went well. In India with Amazon we have your birthday one-stop shop. So if you want to organize your birthday party for your kids, we will deliver the whole thing to your house, hats, candles, whatever, and of course some of our products. So it requires for us to adapt to our business and our product range and how we connect with the consumer, but it's a much richer relationship, I would say, as through the brick and mortar stores.
That's great. Thank you. Jay, most people in the room know Disney and Alibaba and Mondelēz and Sysco with an S, okay? So tell us about Boxed, why you started the business, what you do, and your great focus on ingredients.
Sure. You're assuming most people don't know about Boxed, so we're not more famous than Alibaba, but okay.
I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah,
Dave.
you're the best dressed person.
Yeah, that's right.
The smartest dressed person, I'll say that.
For what it's worth, Dirk, I like Mondelēz as a name. Like, you guys had a more difficult challenge. We just looked at different domain names we could afford to buy, and Boxed was the best name at the lowest price, and so we're Boxed.
It rolls better off the tongue than Mondelēz, I would say.
We probably could sell you Mondelēz at a cheaper price.
We should swap names. And also, sorry, one last thing was, Christine and I were talking about going to Disneyland. I took my kids to Disneyland yesterday, and I've got my money on you guys because we were on the Snow White ride, and there's this like place where the little poisonous apple is made, and so people were actually throwing money, including I saw a $5 bill down there, just into the well. And I was thinking, this dad threw like a $1 bill down there, and I was thinking like, Dad, like they don't need your money, man. Like, you know, like Avenger just opened to $1.2 billion and you paid $16 for that hot dog. So, you know, they don't need donations.
I'll always take the money.
Yeah. But Boxed, so we started in my garage 5.5 years ago in tropical New Jersey. So it was a wonderful place known as the cradle of civilization. But it was either starting an e-commerce company in a garage or start a band like Bon Jovi in New Jersey. So we weren't very good at playing music, so we started an e-commerce company, thinking that, you know what, like Amazon won horizontal retail 1.0 because not that much money was spent online back in the 90s and early 2000s. But now so much money is being spent online that there will be verticals where billion-dollar companies could be built. And that's what we went after. Our core thesis was that, you know, just like you have Sam's Club sharing the same parking lot as Walmart in 70% of the locations, they separate the two. They don't make one gigantic center because the folks selling or going into wholesale are very different than the folks going into a Walmart, more to B2C experience. So now about 25% of our business is B2B. We service, for example, Every airport in America is a client of Box. Every time, most major airlines, if your flights are delayed, if you've noticed you don't get those $10 lunch vouchers anymore, you get like a 25-cent granola bar. You have us to thank for that, because that's what we do for them. The other side of Box is that we also sell the entire end-to-end software now. We built the front end, the warehouse management software, the inventory management software, even down to we manufacture the physical robotics for automation. And so in the coming kind of 30 or 45 days, you'll see us kind of announcing the first licensees of that business. So it's about as end-to-end as you can get without stores just yet.
Thanks. Joe, you and I had dinner last night with Secretary Mnuchin, and he left early this morning to go to China. Tell me how you think he felt as he was departing dinner last night.
Well, when he told us that he was leaving early morning to go to China, we were trying to rush him out the door, out of dinner, because we want him to get a good night's sleep before he travels. I think he was fairly optimistic. I think he represents the part of the camp, if you will, that understands that it's important to have good relationships with China. This is the most important sort of foreign policy relationship for the next 20 years, 30 years for America. So I thought he struck a very optimistic, very constructive tone.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that we both came away with the same impression that he was going to China with a very optimistic attitude about coming home with something good. Now, on that statement, I'm sure the markets are screaming right now. Christine, we've talked about pairing content and the consumer in the media side. Let's talk about parks and resorts for a minute, which is clearly a very important part of the Disney experience. And over the past several years, you made lots of investments in technology. I know Star Wars Land is opening. I can't wait to visit it myself. Tell us what you're doing in the parks with technology to make the experience more personalized and more exciting.
Sure. Well, technology is really part of the Disney DNA when it comes down to the way Walt thought about creating entertainment, magical places where people could suspend their regular lives and really enjoy something that was stress-free. So that has continued to evolve as we have continued to develop and build out our parks and resorts globally. But what we've done on Star Wars, which is called Galaxy's Edge, there's going to be two, both opening this year. One is in Anaheim, that opens first at the end of May, and then later in the year we'll be opening one in Orlando. But these are truly immersive experiences, and some of the technology that we've employed is going to, I would say, revolutionize the theme park experience. It's been a long time in development. It is very sophisticated and complex. But the reason is that people, because they have access to whether it's AR or VR experiences, they want to have a physical experience that's really thrilling. So we have two main attractions in that park that'll be open, one at the open and one later in the year. And using the technology is to create, once again, for today's consumers, an experience that they will want to repeat, they'll want to tell their friends about, and it's something that is, once again, unique. And this is done by our internal group called Imagineers, and they really set the bar at a very high level, defining what a true theme park experience is. We don't call them rides, we call them attractions. And when we do something like Galaxy's Edge, we call it an immersive world. So I think when you'll see the reviews on that, everyone will see that we've really hit this one as hard as we could, and hopefully out of the park. Another thing we do with technology in our parks is use it for directly for the consumer experiences. And that's for everything from magic bands that came out several years ago. At the time, their RFID technology, at the time, kids loved that they could have a watch band in any color that they chose, and they could just touch it to the door and the door would open. But we've evolved from that into vacation planning that can all be done online. You can sit in your room, wherever, home, bedroom, living room, family room, and plan your entire vacation, not just when you're going to go and when you're going to leave, but everything that you'll be doing during the day. And so that's another way we use technology. And lastly, I would just say the way we use it for improving the guest experience is being able to forecast attendance and attendance on any day of the week, any day of the month. And we have introduced variable pricing. So if you choose to pay less and go when the park is less crowded, those are value days. We have peak days, and those would be things around peak holiday seasons. And the price will vary, but it also is to better load balance the parks and serve people to adjust their schedules and planning of their vacations. So we really try to look at it in multiple different ways. And I think, as Joe experienced yesterday down in Anaheim, it's a pretty good experience.
That's great. Tom, I started my career back in the food service business. I don't know if I ever told you that.
Oh, yeah.
You think I told you that once
Yes.
or twice? And back then, the sales process was pretty rudimentary. A salesman went to see the chef, he went to the storeroom, he went to the cooler, and he came out with an order. Tell us how technology is changing that process and how Sysco is looking at this for the future as well.
So, interestingly enough, Nelson, the process of a customer at least handling their order and being prepared to replenish whatever they used for that week has not changed all that much, but technology has certainly changed a lot of how they do that work. And so, as you can imagine, in a restaurant, every day it's a kind of a cycle where they have product they need, they prepare those products, they serve their customers, and then need to replenish that throughout the week. And so what we've done is really work with them from the very inception of what's the recipe of those items, what are the products that go into that, helping them make sure that they've got not only the right products on their menu that will satisfy and serve their consumers, because the consumer demands and needs are changing, whether that's flavor changes that are happening across the world, or certainly this need for more local and fresh products. So it starts from the very front end around the products that they have on their menu and helping them make sure they've got the right items at the right cost so they can deliver their financials. Then as it goes through the process, we've built out a lot of solutions to help customers online place those orders. And we're very focused on the omni-channel experience. So we have many customers who've moved to placing orders online. About 55% of our local customers now use our applications to order products, but we still have others who would prefer to call in or who would prefer to still see a salesperson. But the bigger change that we're seeing happening is how do we enable that customer to be more efficient and effective throughout the day? So we've got inventory management programs that are connected so that they can not only set par levels for their products, but they can more easily reorder those items, or they can still work with us using similar technology to place those orders through the salesperson. We've moved our sales organization to be much more consultative. And so that means bringing not only new and differentiated products, but also other solutions and services that helps them be more effective and efficient. For us, we really manage our success as our customers' ability to be successful. And for many of them, that includes being able to get the kind of returns on their business that they've built out there. So technology is certainly changing a lot of the way we work with these customers, not only in how they order product, but how they actually think about building their menu and ultimately driving their business.
Thanks, Dirk. One of the hardest and toughest jobs in the world is that of the beleaguered cocoa farmer. Tell us about the program Mondelēz has set up for the farmer to make his life a bit simpler and continually improve the quality of the cocoa.
So we're biggest chocolate manufacturer in the world, and a key ingredient for chocolate is cocoa. And cocoa is grown in a number of countries around the world, particularly in Ghana, Ivory Coast. Those two together are about half of the supply, but also Indonesia, Brazil, usually in areas rural, close to tropical forests. The farmers that do that are small farmers who work on very small plots of land, and that is leading to a number of issues related to that. First of all, their living standards are very low. Second, since they want to grow more cocoa, they tend to cut down tropical forests to get more land. They often don't have access to health facilities, schools, running water, and so on. They tend also to have their kids work on the field. So it's a complex problem. And we as a company, we feel that our purpose is to empower consumers to snack right. And so we feel that we need a sustainable, strong and prosperous cocoa supply chain. And so we're trying to find solutions for these farmers, and we've implemented a program called Cocoa Life. And what it does is we have people on the ground that work with the farmers. They help them to increase the yield on their farms. As they do that, they don't need to cut down forests anymore because they're self-sufficient. They even have excess land and they can reforest, or they can use the land for other sources of income. We work with the government so that they bring in schools, health facilities, running water, and so on. We also create community groups where the wives are active, and we try to empower women to also start taking care of the community. And so we work at the moment with about 143,000 farmers in 1,200 communities. And we monitor them to see if the yield goes up, if their standard of life goes up, and we track the cocoa as it goes through the supply chain. And so we want to make sure that at the moment 43% of the cocoa we source is done that way. And in fact, today we're going to announce that by 2025 we want to have 100% of our cocoa sourced that way through farms that we monitor. We use satellite imaging to monitor the size of the farms and make sure that the deforestation doesn't continue. And so in the end we can say that it's a program that increases the standard of living, fights child labor, guarantees an ethical source of cocoa, and stops deforestation. And that's basically the program.
That's great. Chieh, Box has made a name for itself by offering very significant employee benefits. One of them is paying for the college tuition for your employees. How do you keep that going? How does that become financially feasible as you continue to grow and have more and more employees? By the way, Chieh, I have 10 kids, 2 have yet to go to college. So after this, you and I are going to talk about a position for me.
We're not taking applications, Nelson. Okay. Kidding. Well, there's a reason behind it. There's a personal reason behind it, and there's a business reason behind it. And so I grew up in a working class family when my parents immigrated to the U.S. And so that is basically like a dog whistle for like we were poor. And so I remember when we were a family of 4 with my mom just working a minimum wage job and coming home, sitting around the table. I remember at a very early age, I recognized we were poor. And so now that we own and operate these fulfillment centers with hundreds of folks making an hourly wage, definitely not minimum wage. We start at between like $13 to $20 an hour, depending on the market. Now that I'm quote unquote the man, do I need to have like my boot on someone else's neck now that we're running a company where I remember how difficult it is to raise a family on an hourly wage. So it's not like we're a charity. There's a very fine line between the two, but we want to give folks a chance, because I think when you're poor, you're constantly being told you're not good enough. And if you work for us, you can come in, and we don't say you're good enough. We say you will have the chance to prove that you're good enough, and that's through education, that's through a good wage, and that's through benefits and stock options once you're a W-2 employee. The actual way from a business perspective that we actually make it work is that engineers, for example, it's really tough to keep them at a company. Yep. Our engineers, they make between 150 to 300 grand. They're not going to qualify. They don't need our help in college education for their kids. but tying them to a mission outside of just sitting there and programming all day has been really, really impactful. So for example, over the last 12 months, our hardware team and software team included, we haven't had a single engineer leave voluntarily across the entire organization. When you actually become a full-time employee in our facilities, there's very, very, very little turnover. Why does that matter? Because I get my chops busted all the time by the board. Like, why are we still doing this? Well, I said, like, hey, if we increase turnover by 10 or 15% next year, guess what? You know, every time you go to a headhunter to try to hire a mid-level person, that's 75 grand right out the door. That's one of your grandkids. That's their education right there. Right. You know, every time you go to a C-level turnover, that's $125,000 to $150,000. And so that adds up really quickly. With all that money, instead of giving it to headhunters, why don't we do it for the employees of the company and thereby lowering turnover? So right now, it's footing.
Great, sounds great. We've all been talking about, really, Jay, that's great. I really mean that. We've all been talking about how all of you are responding to the changing consumer needs and how nimble you all are. I want to now turn to the environment. David Taylor, chairman of P&G, could not be with us today. He had a global leadership team that happens once a year in Cincinnati. But he gave me his okay to show you all a short clip on how P&G is dealing with waste, dealing with our environmental footprint. After we see this short video, I'm going to ask our panelists to tell us how they're dealing with the environment and to keep our world a lot cleaner and a lot better than it is today. Could you please roll the video?
Every year, it takes 1 million plastic bottles and 12 million pounds of CO2 from 100,000 trucks to ship 800 million gallons of water and millions of everyday products. So we can shower 4 billion times and do 6 billion loads of laundry. Traveling 73 million miles to bring 800 million gallons to our stores and homes where we already have water. It takes rethinking everything, with 10 years of research and over 30 patents. It takes a thin 2-inch swatch. It takes removing all the unnecessary ingredients, eliminating 100% of the water, reducing 80% of the weight, and giving you 70% more space in biodegradable bamboo packaging. Spun layer by layer that lathers and transforms when you introduce it to water. As effective as heavy water-based products, but it only takes one little swatch to wash all of this, and these, this, and this. Simple, powerful clean for your home and body. Take on a world of waste with DS3. 80% less weight, 70% less space, and 75% less emissions. DS3. Enlighten Clean. Enlighten your personal care and laundry today. Support our Indiegogo launch, and together we begin making a difference.
I want to tell you all, when I first got on the board of P&G, I got on the technology committee, and in months we came out with that product. Seriously, it is revolutionary. I've been using it at home for a year. My hair looks great as a result of it. It's conditioned and shampooed and so forth. But seriously, it is a breakthrough product. It's the first product line and the first thing that ever came out of their innovation that touches many of their products instead of just one. And we need that. We all need that. We hear in a few years in the oceans there'll be more plastic bottles than there will be fish. And that's the kind of stuff we have to attack. And our customers, clearly the millennials and clearly the Gen Zs, are really, really interested in making our environment much better. So with that, I'd like to who wants to go first and talk about what we're doing environmentally? I got to have a taker up here somewhere.
I will.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Christy.
So I think everything you said about the environment is, I mean, this is a fantastic product. I can't wait to get rid of, if I can get 70% space back, I'd be thrilled. But one of the things I think is really important is the environment is something that all of us care about, all of our kids care about. And any of us who have kids in their 20s, my kids constantly remind me how we've screwed up the planet. So, but also I think it's incumbent upon companies to be stewards of the environment. It's also really important, and Jay mentioned the work he's doing on education, but also I think employees want to work for companies that they know have values that resonate with theirs. And that's one of the things at Disney that we've been very forward-thinking on water, energy, waste, and our largest footprint is in our parks and resort segment because they do have a footprint that's all over. That's where we will have the largest impact. But we're also doing things in throughout the rest of our company. Every building that we've built for the last 10 years or so has been LEED certified. When we go in and retrofit anything, we're going for conservation of whether it's water, energy, or waste. And let me just give you a couple of examples. And some of them are small, and these aren't meant to be exhaustive. It just is the kind of things that we're doing. But on the waterfront, we have a campus here in Burbank. And probably several years ago, we put in a water reclamation system. Now, I don't know exactly what the water has, how large it has gone up to this year because we've had quite a lot of rain here in LA. But in general, on average, we reclaim about 20 million gallons just on that one studio lot, and it does all of our irrigation. So that's just one example. And all of these things are additive, but that's just one. On the waste side, this year we announced that we were going to eliminate single-use plastic straws and stirrers. We were actually concerned that we were going to get a real backlash from employees or from consumers in the parks. It has been widely embraced, and we're on target to accomplish that this year. And that will eliminate 200 million of those items, 200 million in just 1 year. And lastly, on the energy front, an example is in Orlando, we opened up a new solar facility, and that facility is now able to produce enough clean energy to operate 2 of our 4 theme parks in Orlando at Walt Disney World. And what does that really mean? Well, it's about 60,000 tons of greenhouse gas that is eliminated. And another way of looking at it, that is the equivalent of 10,000 cars being taken off the road. So those are the kind of things we're doing, and it's important for us to talk about it because I think we want to be a leader in this space, and it's also important for our consumers as well as our employees to know about it.
Thank you. Dirk?
Yes, it's a similar approach for us. Consumers hold us accountable these days, so we need to really pay attention to this and take action. In our case, it's about making our packaging recyclable, which is a bit more difficult in food because it's not possible at the moment in food to use recycled materials. But we've taken a commitment that by 2025, all our packaging will be recyclable. The second thing is to make our supply chain sustainable. The example of cocoa, but we also have wheat. We buy a lot of wheat as a major biscuit manufacturer, so we try to grow our wheat in a biodiverse way. We have a wheat harmony program. And then it's about our operations where we are focused on CO2, water utilization, energy consumption, and so on. And in food, food waste is quite an issue. Yep. So we are trying to educate consumers in mindful snacking and only using as much as you really need, don't throw away. There's many statistics flying around, but it is said that 40% of waste of food is wasted, and so educating our consumers to not do that and try to conserve and only use the packs they need. That's another area of what we're trying to do.
Great, Joe.
Well, even though we're an internet business, we produce environmental externalities our data centers consume huge amounts of electricity, both the running of the servers and also cooling the servers. So we have taken steps to locate our data centers in the right locations where there's wind power energy, and also we have a data center near a lake, so the water could cool itself. And so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is in logistics. On a given day, the Alibaba platform generates about 80 million packages that need to be delivered. So you think about the packaging that go into the 80 million items, that's a lot of potential environmental issues. And so we have a program to do reusable boxes. We also have a program to, this is our innovation, to design boxes so that they don't need to have plastic tape. And it's all, sort of corrugated, cardboard boxes that could be recycled. Because plastic tape, creates a lot of issues in the recycling process. We're not doing enough in that area, but we are trying to push as far as we can. But let me take a step back and just sort of give you a perspective of China. Over the last 30 years, China had been the manufacturing hub of the world. It's a factory of the world. As a result, it's created a lot of pollution, both air pollution and also water pollution to the environment. So when you look at our young people, the people that work in our company, our average median age is about early 30s. These are very young people. They're actually environmentally conscious because they live it. They live the negative consequences of pollution every day. So they are pushing senior management, to think more, to be more innovative about environmental solutions. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a generational thing. Today, if you look at our senior management, they're in their sort of 40s. But the next layer, the day-to-day people that are operating the business, are in their 30s. I think it's about time that this voice, they get heard very loudly, and I think that's happening all over companies in China. I think it's a good thing.
Well, my last trip to Beijing, I found the air pronounceably cleaner, and maybe it was just lucky, but it was much better than I'd found historically. So
they shut down the factories when you go to Beijing.
Something's working. Tom?
So at Sysco, we've got a three-pillared approach called people, products, and planet. And I'll talk just a little bit about the planet piece of that. It's obviously very important to us as a company. We obviously either generate or partner with organizations that generate quite a bit of challenge in this area. So from a planet perspective, we've been very focused on renewable energy. For our fleet, we are working with partners to electrify either our trucks or our trailers, which are a big part of our carbon footprint. In addition, from our facility standpoint, we've recently partnered with some energy companies for solar field in Texas, where we're now basically about 80% of all of our energy is being driven by those solar fields and that solar garden in Texas. And then from an agricultural perspective, we partner with folks and farmers primarily around sustainable agriculture. Very important, again, that the products we're bringing to market are in fact brought to market in the right way and with the right sustainable quality. So a three-pronged approach that we launched last August for our 2025 CSR goals.
Chieh?
I agree with Joe that it's becoming like a business imperative. It's especially in e-commerce with as heavy of a logistics component as we have. Over the last year, it's no longer been a nice to have. We have customers writing in like hundreds a week that will say, I will not shop with you if you package this up in this way anymore. And also, so we then have to educate them that, we ship 8 to 10 items per order. And so by batching so many items, we save on shipping and you help save the environment. But also, even as we continue to raise equity financing, we recently hosted an investor that came in, and we still use a mix of craft paper and air bubbles in order to insulate the boxes or as dunnage. When he saw the air bubble machine, he was like, I want to vomit. He's like, so if I invest, the first thing you're going to get rid of is that machine.
Right.
And so now it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have.
Yep. Well, this has been great so far. Now I want to ask you all, because we're coming to the end of our session, what are the new consumer-facing trends, processes, products that you're very excited about and that you're seeing now? And who wants to start? Nobody?
Yeah, I'll go.
Nobody? Go ahead.
I'll go. In our case, it's personalization. In food, it seems probably sort of the last frontier in getting exactly what you want. But we see a consumer that really wants whatever they need at the time they want it, delivered in the way they want it. So for us, that means that we need to develop a wider range of products, which creates complexity for us, of course. We also are adapting our messaging. It's not just about our products. At the moment, for instance, Oreo has about 100 different messages out there. Most people don't know because you will only get the messages that are adapted to you. But that sort of personalization is quite important. And then we can get instant feedback online on what we're doing, very personalized feedback. So I think for us in food, personalization is going to be a huge trend going forward.
Joe?
Well, I think it's this trend among businesses, especially brands, companies
Right.
that have brands, that everybody wants to have a closer connection with their end consumers. So this push for direct consumer is a very, very interesting trend. And at Alibaba, we try to set ourselves up so that we are the platform to help the brands to connect with their consumers. And we have software and interface that could serve the marketing teams of the brands so that they can directly see the kind of consumer insight, the kind of data that we're collecting relating to their products. And with Oreos, I remember a couple of years ago, we did a project with you guys, talk about personalization. We helped the users on our apps to design their customized packaging for Oreo cookies. Mm-hmm. And that was a very, very successful launch. And these are the kind of things that we're seeing. It's very, very interesting from our perspective.
Thanks, Joe. You got a quick minute?
Yeah, I would just reinforce everything that's already been said about personalization. And unless you have a direct relationship with the consumer, you are unable to fulfill that need. And also brands. Our company is built on brands. We are a brand. The name of the company is a brand. But within our company, the brands have a brand promise. And once again, the brand promise has to be delivered. When you want to engage with the company, it does have to be personalized. So it is a bit of a virtuous cycle. But once again, you need that direct-to-consumer relationship in order to fulfill that.
Well, that's great. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We ended literally 53 seconds early. Amazing. And thank you, and thank our panel, please.
Thank you.